Welcome to another episode of the Peak Potential Success Show. My name is Fong. I'm an entrepreneur, business strategist, real estate investor, speaker, and also a best-selling author. And every single day, I help others unlock potentials and guide them to succeed. Today on the show, we have another amazing guest. This is somebody who's been a big part of an amazing group that I'm part of, Syndicate. And he's always so full of energy, great content, great tips on marketing and business growth. And if you catch any of his videos online, you're going to have a big smile on your face because he's always so full of energy, lots of great content, and lots of fun to talk to. So I couldn't wait to have him on my show. He loves building and managing great quality, high-performing, cost-effective, interactive campaigns for his customers and his partners. He's worked with some of the biggest brand names out there, from Remax, Coca-Cola, Kia, Honda, just to name a few. And he just takes that guesswork out of growth. So please welcome founder of Growth-Based Ventures, Rapid Boost, and also marketing expert, growth strategist, a fractional CMO, Mr. Ali Salman.
Thank you so much, man. I think that's an intro. I cannot even do it for myself. So Fong, thank you so much. I'm humbled and I'm super excited to serve your audience here.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time and spending some quality time with us, and also sharing some of your great value adds right now. So first of all, before we dive really deep into some of the stuff that you do, share with us your journey, that history of how you became this great entrepreneur and this amazing marketer.
You know, I'm a big believer in enabling people. When I was like 12, 13, as you start to understand world around you, I remember that my dad brought us a computer. This is DOS days, right? You know, you didn't even had Windows. And back home, you know, you even you had a pirated copies of Windows because we couldn't even afford Windows at that time. But we were the first kids in our whole block, where we used to live. We were the first kids who got the computer. So, you know, he kind of instilled that bug in us that you know what, technology is coming. And this is, I'm talking about late 1990s, early 2000s, right? And that never went away. Then it became that family used to call us that, hey, can you fix us this thing? Can you fix us that thing? So we became that in the family, me and my brother. Guess what? We come to Canada. And as you go through a new process of settling down in a country, you always, of course, look at your career and say, what should I do? What I'm here to do? What I mean to do, right, in my life? And, you know, that technology bug actually, came back, and it never went away. And now it's after getting married and starting companies and helping brands, my wife says to me that Ali's first love is computer, and she's right. My first love is computer and technology, and she comes second. That's how it all started. And now the journey continues, right? You know, I love technology. I love customer acquisition, sales, marketing. It's kind of the cross section of these three things: sales, marketing, and technology. And that's where I play the ball. That's where my wheelhouse is. And that's what excites me the most. Just tremendous amount of change which has happened in the business world because of technology we have now today. So yeah, I mean, you can wake me up at 3 o'clock in the morning and say, hey, Ali, we have a campaign to work on. I can do that, right? You know, so that's a passion, and that's what excites me. And that's why I keep doing that. So.
Awesome. Well, one of the things that's on your bio is that you're a fractional CMO. So what exactly is that? Because that's not a title I see very often.
A good question. So generally, what happens that a lot of high growth companies, either they don't have a CMO, or either they're not that big yet. So example is a lot of the companies, they might not have a chief marketing officer in place, either that, or either they are lacking a capability and a capacity at a very strategic macro level, right? You know, so specifically around high growth technology companies. So what I do is I basically partner up with them. I work around their strategy, right? You know, and then the compensation is actually based on the equity or the performance, right? You know, so you actually go in these businesses and you turn them around, and you show them the growth trajectory, But the interesting thing is the way relationship work is very performance driven. And that's something that, like, I'm finding a lot of good traction in, because a lot of the technology companies, they're raising a lot of money, but the challenge is that they don't know how to use that money effectively. And they need they need a high level strategy, but they also don't have $100,000, $200,000 sitting around to hire an exec or a leader to run their marketing. So that's where we just come in as a fractional basis and, like, do those like right pieces of the puzzle for them, and then take a step back, and get basically compensated on purely on the performance basis. So fractional CMO is a very new thing in the space, because what we have also seen it is that marketing leadership is not cheap to hire anymore, especially if you want good leaders in marketing space. They are very costly, and that's why, like, in the fractional space, you can work with 5 to 10 companies at one time, and it works out for them financially, and it works out of you, because you're in my capacity, I'm creating a bigger impact instead of just working with a client. So
That is very, very cool, because I know there's a lot of companies out there who's like, well, if I have to do this, then I have to take this away.
yeah,
But if I want to do this, I can't do the marketing side. But you're able to jump in there on a kind of case by case basis and really just focus in on what specifically that they need, kind of thing, and be more cost effective as well. Now, something else that you do very well, and it's one of your lines, is that you take that guesswork out. Lots of people will go, you know what? I'm just going to throw something against the wall, and whatever sticks, well, we'll stick with that. How do you have that mindset or be able to train yourself to help people take that guesswork out?
with the guesswork out. Yeah. So Fong, like, marketing is numbers, business is numbers, numbers is patterns, and patterns show us outcomes, right? So, um, like, marketing has a place for creativity. Absolutely, you need to create. You need to be different, right? Absolutely right. There is a place for that creativity side. But majority of the marketing, right, if I can sum it up, 80-90% is actually very data driven numbers game, right? So a lot of organizations, what they tend to do is, like, they do gut based decision making, right? That executive likes, like, that he has a liking, and he's like, okay, you know what, this will work. Well, have you even looked at the data? What does your consumer wants, right? So I think, um, people tend to think that marketing is a guesswork. Actually, it's not a guesswork. It's a data driven, like, exercise, right? And once you start looking at the data shows you patterns, and based on that patterns, you can start, like, putting those marketing pieces into your campaigns and into your business, right? So I always tell people is, like, when was the last time you looked at your strategy? Sometimes I'm going to say, we don't even have a strategy. Okay. Or when was the last time you actually looked or change your strategy? Because the question will be like, it's not working out. Well, it's not working out. The damn do something about it, right? It's like, at the concept, I always say, either stop and pause, because you cannot just continue running on the Ferris wheel and expect different results, right? So you need to change the course. And if you need to change the course, you need to do things differently, but what you currently are doing, right? And one of the best ways to change the course and be very certain about it is look at the data, because then you're not guessing that which way should I go. Data will tell you that this is the most optimized way to, like, take. And I think that's what makes marketing a little bit more exciting and predictable. There is a general narrative around that marketing is unpredictable, and to a degree it is also unpredictable because there's market economics and other forces. But in most cases, if you cover your bases well, your chances of being a successful product or a service campaign is very high, because it's numbers driven game, right?
Now, you work with some of the biggest names out there, Honda, Kia, Coca-Cola. They have these big, amazing budgets that they can allocate to marketing and also research and all that kind of stuff. And they're not the only companies to do that. There's lots of other companies who have that kind of budget. But what sets these companies apart from those other companies to be still more successful than the ones that do have the budget to do so?
Good question. So first thing is, like, sometimes when you get so big, you also get small, or you also get slow, right? So you become a laggard. so sometimes it's like, not actually, in fact, having a big budget works against you because the machine moves so slow. It's like an elephant moving, right? So for point A to point B, you really have to, like, there's a lot of approvers, there's a lot of things, right? So now on the other side of it, you look at these companies who are very nimble. They move fast. They have those frameworks, which we call it Scrum-based frameworks in project management, that, like, they're very agile, right? They launch a campaign, tomorrow they can tweak the campaign. Second week, they have a new campaign out already. Whereas in terms of Honda or, like, bigger guys, they cannot just do that. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work. The shifts don't happen this fast. So, when you're smaller and when you are nimble, when you're agile, you have some of those benefits, and you can move way faster. You can try things faster, right? And, you also have not a lot to lose. If your campaign goes south, you spent, let's say, 2 grand at it, whereas like Honda is spending 2 million at it, right? So there is way more stake, way more at stake for them because they have bigger campaigns, right? So for a smaller side, I think I always see that as like, wherever you are in your phase of growth, you have some pros and so you have some cons, and you really need to capitalize on some of your pros. Like, I always also say that the cause and effect relationship, right? What should you do in your business that should translate into growth? And, interestingly, every company, every space, every industry is different, right? And if there was a very standard playbook, then we can all apply and say, what, just do 1, 2, 3, 4. So sometimes having money doesn't mean success, right? And sometimes having lack of money, in fact, it works in your favor because you think creatively, you think out of the box, because you cannot access most of the resources, right? And I think it just all comes down to the strategy, right? And money is irrespective of the strategy, because strategy is at the core of it, right? That it's like an engineer, before they even build a building, it's that blueprint, right? What it will look like, what are the its and bits of it, and the marketing, that's the strategy, right? Regardless of your resources and money and your size of the business, your strategy has to be solid, so you're tactical when you go and execute the campaigns, right? That also work out for you, right?
So would you say there's a percentage of what you should allocate towards marketing?
So now high growth companies can go upwards of 10% of their revenue, right? Now, if you look at the modern tech startups, they even go bigger because they are in the space that it's okay to spend on the growth without looking at the bottom line. But in traditional space, it doesn't work like that, right? So generally, in a traditional space, it's 2% to 5% of your revenue on your marketing, right? Some industries are very conservative in nature, so they might be spending 1 point of your total revenue, right? And in technology space, you will see that, like, they might be spending way more. So it's like 5 to 10% of your total income or revenue they're spending on marketing. Again, I would come down to this thing. Money is irrespective of that, how much you should allocate. Whatever you're allocating should work, right? Because if you're allocating 5%, it's working good, right? That means that you have created this machine that you put $1 and it's throwing $5 out for you. But if you're spending 1% too and it's not working, that machine is irrelevant for you. So I think, like, more than the budget, it's actually whatever you spend, right? $1, 5,000, 10,000, or $5 million. What kind of ROI are you getting on the other end, right? And is it making financially sense? Is your bottom line protected, right? I always say this, that it all comes down to not your revenue, it all comes down to your bottom line, because that's what your take home is, right? It's not, you could be a $200 million company, but you're in net loss. It doesn't matter, you're doing $200 million, right? So it all comes down to the bottom line, and then correlate bottom line to your spending, and then see how is it impacting it directly to your bottom line more than other KPIs, like, average transaction per customer, your top line revenue. All of that thing is good, but what is the direct impact on your bottom line? Because that's where, like, if you're a public company, that's where investors look at. If you're a private company, that's what, like, your board of directors and your partners will look at, right?
Very, very cool. No, you've done this for a very long time. I'm sure you have a lot of great, interesting stories about your successes, your failures. Is there a specific case or a specific campaign that was very, very creative that you went, you know what, I did a good job? Or is there one that's a catastrophe, but you got a great lessons learned from it that you could actually share with us?
Good question. Yeah. So there was a campaign we created in my early days. We did a project with Coca-Cola, and what we created was like, that so Coca-Cola's distribution points are all retail, means that like, uh, very rarely you're going to go and buy Coca-Cola directly on the e-commerce website. People don't do that. They buy it through these third-party retailers, right? Like, Walmarts, small grocery shops, smoke shops, gas stations, right? So we created a campaign that whoever will sell more Coke, right, will actually give them 2% of rebate of the total, like, of their sales. And that's a decent amount of rebate, because imagine like, a gas station moving $100,000 worth of product a year. That's $2,000 in like, a decent rebate, right? And the idea was that this rebate will help push the revenue even higher, right? Because you're incentivizing people to spend more. It's like credit card, right? That I'll give you cash back, so you spend more. Now, interestingly, what we noticed that people who took the rebates, they went on vacations, they went on like, so in fact, it has zero impact on like, the revenue. These owners, right, they were short-sighted. So someone went on Vegas, someone found test 2,000 extra dollars, and like, they spent it themselves. But we were thinking that with the rebate, they will in fact like, move more product and actually spend it on their own business, right? So it was an interesting thing because it was a major campaign. So middle of the campaign, we actually changed the rules and we said, we weren't going to give you 2% rebate as a cash. We will give you 2% rebate on your leasehold improvements. Means that you need a new menu, we're going to do that for you. You need a new marketing collateral, we'll do that for you. Because it's interesting, because when you give someone that cash, they don't know what to do with it. And they end up spending on their other things, which are their wants, right? And all of a sudden, like, when we realized it, that when we were started to do that, that had a major impact, because, people then came and say, I want to get my menu redone, right? I want digital menu. Can you guys like do that? Of course we can do that. Can you please make sure you move $30,000 worth of products? Absolutely, I can do that, right? And we started seeing a shift, right? And then all of a sudden we start digitizing these menus. And what was going on is whenever we digitized it, of course, Coke had a real estate in that menu, right? Every combo has to have a Coke bottle. So it was a very smart product placement where campaign was kind of not working out initially. And all of a sudden, we took a lot of market share. In fact, we went into the stores where Pepsi was a core product. And we said, you know what, we're going to do some capital investment. We'll give you a new menu. We're going to give you some new marketing collateral and some of the other things like, would you shift to the Coke? And that was an easy shift. In some cases, it was $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 shift, which ended up getting them $50, $100, $200,000 accounts per year. So it's always sometimes that like if a campaign is not working out, take a step back, understand why it's not working out, right? Really go deep with it. And then analyze it and make those adjustments around it. It's like, I always say it's like, weight loss plan. You have to be doing that because you cannot just stop doing it. That's not the solution. Solution is how can you improve it? And campaigns are like that sometimes, that you cannot just pause it, stop it and say, okay, screw it, the money's wasted. No, look at like what's working and what's not working. So you start making changes. And that's again, going back to that agility and like, being able to pivot really fast. And if you can do that, then like, you can get the desired outcome. So it was almost a disaster in terms of like, the leadership was not happy with us. But luckily it turned into a really good campaign for them. And in Alberta, like, year over year, we saw 56% revenue increase for them, right? And in the categories where not the direct Coca-Cola products, but some of the other like, category products they have, which are very slow moving, vitamin waters of the world and some of the other products they have, they saw really good race. And that's where actually they wanted the most growth. So I would say disaster turned into an opportunity, and especially with a big client like Coke, it's very memorable. But if you would have asked me when the campaign was not working, I was shitting in my pants, literally, because it's one of our biggest accounts we had at that time, right? So.
Mhm. When it comes to those kind of stories, I love those because there's always that lessons learned. And you mentioned a few times about pivoting fast.
Yeah.
Now, pivoting fast is something that is easier said than done.
Yes.
Right? You tell people, oh, you just pivot. Don't worry about it. Just pivot around it. Well, how do you do that? Is that something you've kind of trained your mind to kind of think outside the box more? How did you kind of develop that muscle so you can pivot fast?
So some people say move, just move, right? Pivot. I think you are right. You need to develop an appetite and culture in your organization around it, right? Absolutely, because sometimes a leader want to move fast, but the resources and assets they have to deploy, they are not moving fast, right? It's like saying that, like, when the war happens, how fast the military can get like the equipment to the borders, right? There's a whole system around it, right? And these countries come up with these amazing strategies, like, how we will get our tanks to the border, right? But that's like actually business too, that when the crisis happens, how fast you can change things around, right? And I strongly believe that always starts with a leader who is leading that department, company, project, right? Owner of the company or not. So it starts with them. They need to be the person who have that, like, forward thinking outlook that, what, if we take a risk, we shouldn't be fearful. And I think a lot of the organizations really instill in their employees, don't take risk. What if this go wrong? What if that goes wrong? And I think we have that implications on them. So if we tell them that, what, you can take risk. The culture is to take a risk. It's okay, right? We might not be successful every time, but in most cases, we will end up in a better position if we wouldn't have moved. So I think it's about culture. It's about leadership, right? And it's partly about, like, having it in your DNA as well. Just a little bit of discomfort, because when you're moving, you don't know where the puck is going. But isn't the business is all about chasing the damn puck, right? So keep chasing the puck. Don't worry about where the puck was, because where the puck was is irrelevant at this point in time. Now, where is it going? Focus on that. And that's kind of the lesson in pivoting, that, you don't know where the puck is going, but you're keeping an eye on it. You're you're observing it, and you have that culture that, what, wherever the puck is going, your whole team is adjusting and moving it accordingly. And Fong, you go back and look at how organization adjusted to COVID. Now, in some cases, they were forced to adjust, and surprisingly, they also surprised themselves that they were like, wow, we actually adjusted this fast. So I think organizations have that capability and capacity. How much do they exercise it? It's up to their leadership, and it's up to their culture, right? Because business is about money, and if things are not working out, if the ship is sinking, you need to do something. And if you won't gonna do something, the whole damn ship is gone, right? And going back in the days of blockbusters of the world, and like when we talk about, like, like how GoPro became like this leader, where Konica and, like, Fujifilm led the camera division, right? They were all failed to pivot. They all fundamentally failed to change their business models, right? And those billion-dollar players are gone. So, and then we also see some players who pivoted, and actually, like Netflix, which used to be a CD, they started out as a CD and a rental company, and they pivoted and became a content platform, right? And look at where they are now. So I think, like, we have countless examples in the business, and business leaders have to tell themselves that, what, if they don't move, someone else will move, and their place will be gone, or they will become irrelevant, basically.
I liked how you said that when put under pressure, people are able to pivot a lot faster than they thought they could, especially during the pandemic and all that kind of stuff. But also, there's a lot of people out there that, if given the opportunity, they are able to solve more problems than you actually think they can. You just have to empower them with that mindset to do so and take those risks, and saying that those risks are not something that you cannot take. You just have to allow them to do it so that they can rise up to the occasion. Something else kind of popped up into my mind was that mindset of being able to pivot also comes from being able to surround yourself with other people who have that mindset as well, so that you can bounce ideas off of each other and whatnot, from mentors to coaches to other business partners and whatnot. So for yourself, I know that you surround yourself with a lot of amazing people. Is there something that somebody else has told you that you need to do that you've taken and you've implemented and completely changed your business?
So that's a good. So I'll tell you a story and then I'll tell you what I did. So the story is like, going back to when Obama was deciding to run for his campaign. If you go and read his book, and he always talks about talking to his mentors, talking to his people people in his circle, so they can give him that good advice. And the first person he talked to was Democratic Party chair at that time, is Ted, John F. Kennedy's brother, Ted Kennedy, right? Really big guy in the Democratic Party. And you would be like, why does Obama need to ask someone to even run, but the idea is not that. The idea is to understand that, giving you that perspective which you cannot see. It's like, I always say this is we are driving our own cars and all we can see is front and this, but whole 180 degrees in your back is still a blind spot for you. So that's where your mentors come in, your circle of influence comes in, and they tell you, hey, this is what you should be doing, this is what you should be pursuing, right? So one advice I got a few years ago was I was talking to a technology company founder, and he's like, Ali, your one leg will be in the grave providing services, right? Because that's how the service industry is. And that's true, because me being in the service industry, it's always it's a really good cash flow business, but you keep doing it throughout your life, right? It doesn't make you, let's say, $50 million, $100 million, $1 billion home run. It won't, but it will give you a decent 6-figure, 7-figure outcomes, right? And which is very consistent. So that shook me to my core, and I was like, seriously, I thought that we are doing really good with Rapid Boost. Life is good. Things have been very streamlined, right? And we were building towards it, right? That get to the point that we don't have to work ourselves that much. That fundamentally changed the way we do business now. So 2.5 years ago, we started to build products, and one of our major cores of our going next 5 years is building products now. When I say building products, means softwares, mobile apps, actually building technology. Rather than before, what we were doing, we were building it for other people. Now our intent is to build it for ourselves, right? And that's a fundamental shift. I think there's a huge shift in looking at a good example is before we were general contractors who were building this rental apartments for other people. Now we said, hey, we should build our own rental building, right? And although it looks a small change, but we never thought about it ourselves. I never thought it about ourselves. Someone from outside told me, hey, you guys have the capability, you have the capacity, you are building buildings for other people. Why the hell are you not building buildings for yourself? And you're like, oops. And interestingly, we had a cash flow, we had the resources, and the timing was right. So now we start building products, and we are investing in product. That's where the grow-based ventures come in, right? And that's something excites me more, because we understand technology, we understand acquisition. So now the idea is that how one can build a technology company which can take that 100 million, 500 million, or $1 billion home run.
I love that story, because it's always that small little tweak that goes, oh, I should have thought of that from the beginning, kind of thing. It's like Starbucks. Wait a minute, we could actually sell cups of coffee that's already grinded and served. And that changed the whole thing completely. There's a lot of people out there who's just starting out in their businesses, young entrepreneurs. What would you say would be their first 3 or 4 steps that they need to take when it comes to marketing, or just 2 or 3 keys as to what they need to keep in mind?
Good question. Yeah. See, number one, so what is business? Business is creating value. At the core, it's creating value. as a new entrepreneur, you need to understand that product, service, what information, whatever you're selling, how does it solve the people's problems, right? Okay. So that's number one thing, that you should always focus on creating value, because if you create value, in most cases, people will pay you for what you're asking for, because now you're solving a problem. Business is as basic as it is. Solve a problem, ask for the money. Solve a problem, ask for the money, right? And the problem should be solved good, should be solved at scale, because so then you're not solving one person's problem, you're solving thousands of people's problem. Look at software as a service companies. That's how you scale. Look at Coca-Cola. They don't sell one bottle, they sell thousands and millions of bottles. They solve the problem of thirst. They solve the problem of giving people cold beverages like in the hot weather, right? Let's say. So understand the problem you're solving, focus on creating value, understand that how this idea can be scaled, because that's where you're going to make the most money actually, and scale means that it gives you that leverage in terms of time also. When the scale comes in, you gain freedom as an entrepreneur to do other things. You can focus on your family, you can focus on your leisure activities. So first, create value, solve a problem. Second thing, I think what you should do in marketing is, because a lot of the marketing nowadays, especially when it comes to organic marketing, if you have time and you don't have money, that's fine, right? You can create content. Go back to the early days of how Dollar Shaving Club became this billion-dollar brand. Go back to the days how a GoPro founder, when they were broke and they were creating all of these videos in Thailand, no one knew GoPro, but those videos actually made them a billion-dollar company. So the lessons are that go and create. You don't need a lot of money. In fact, you don't have any money, you need $100, buy a $20 website hosting, create a website for yourself, right? Nowadays there are do-it-yourself platforms. Start showing up on your social media channels, right? And going after your audience. You don't need tons of money to basically go after and make your first dollar. Last thing I would say is that try to create a strategy and 3 to 5 year plan. Sometimes you need to have a macro clarity, especially when you're starting out. And last thing I would say is that business is literally like going to the gym. It doesn't happen one day that you go in and you will get a six pack and all of a sudden you win $2 million lot. It doesn't work like that. How the way business works is you start showing up every day, and there's a tipping point comes, and then you start seeing a hockey stick growth, right? It happens with most of the companies out there, right? They reach different points. They reach the tipping points at a different point in time, right? Let's say Facebook got to the tipping point very soon, right? But some brands took years for reach to the tipping point. I was listening to there's a retail company out of Calgary. I think they're 40 years old, and now finally they started the store in West Edmonton Mall after 40 years. It took them a lot of time to expand. They're actually competing with Sport Check, and they're in the sports arena, right? So sometimes your tipping point comes later. So always start showing up regularly, because that's, focus is not that I went to the gym and why I don't have a six pack. That's not the focus. Focus is that I'm going to the gym and I went for 6 months, and now all of a sudden I'm seeing improvements, right? So you put systems in place, you don't focus on a habit, right? Create some systems in your business, keep doing it day in, day out. You start seeing that it will become a machine. You put in effort, time, energy, strategically, you start getting money, income, freedom, all of those things on the other side. So.
Awesome. How I wish I could flip on a switch and all of a sudden have six packs. Yeah, that would be it. That would be amazing.
And I think that's where Fong, that's what teaches us humans, that there is no magic button. It's business is about it's the sports and practice, right? Why there is that 10,000 hours concept, right? Malcolm Gladwell, that the difference between the pro athlete and the ones who play in Olympics and the ones who are doing it as a hobby is literally mere 3,000 hours. Mm-hmm. So you're telling me that, most of us do it as a hobby and we half-ass it. Full asset, take it to that finishing line. you're not that far from the best of the best in the business. Literally, you are this close. But most of us give up in that gap. We are like, oh, it's not working out. Oh, I'm doing it as a hobby. I have a friend, he's a musician. He did music as a hobby for last 10 years, always was broke, right? Drove Uber. He started doing music during COVID because he lost his, he had a lot of work and he had a lot of time. So he's actually started focusing more energy on music. In 1 year, this guy is now like getting offers from these major, record labels. So that's the difference between half-assing and full-assing it, as I say, right? So put in your time and energy to it, the outcome will come, right?
Well, that we should end it there. However, I do have one more question for you, and you've already given a lot of great content, a lot of great messages and advice. But if we put you on the world stage, and there's one message that you can share with the entire world, what would that one message be?
Oh man, there's so many of them, Fong. Come on, like one is like a tough one. I think see, at the core as humans, right? We there's a couple of things I'll say. It kind of embodies the message here. So it's like, being an empath, right? As a leader, understand, because if you are an empath, you can actually start understanding the world around you better, right? Okay. Second thing I would say is like, money is not the first thing, right? Because you come in this world, you leave the money behind, right? So start appreciating relationships, love, some of the other things, like, in your life, right? And interestingly, once you start like appreciating those things, relationships, you start loving people, you are empath with other people, what they go through, right? Like, it will make you a better leader and it will make you a better business leader. I'll go back to a quote what Ray Dalio says, like, that so some of his best moments come in when he goes and does meditation and like goes for his morning walks and things like that. So again, going back to that, it's not just about money, it's a lot about like other things as well. So try to make yourself as a balanced person, and once you create this balance, you'll see that you'll start feeling abundance a lot across the board in all your areas of life, right? Because money can only buy you certain things, but there's a better formula there, right? If you pursue that, right, not just money will come in, money, relationships, health, a lot of other things will going to follow you, because now you are a complete leader rather than you are just focused on a thing in life, right? So yeah, that's a tough one, Fong. Come on, like, man, I need to think, like, and you just giving me one chance, so it's like, I really need to think about this, like, but I think it's about how can you become a better person, what kind of legacy you can leave as a person, right? And if someone asks your kids tomorrow, or someone writes a book on you, what they should include in that book, and think like that as a person, because we don't know. I mean, we have 5 days to live, or we have 50 years to live, right? What kind of legacy are you leaving as a person, right? So
yeah, those are good words to live by. So well done. 5 quick questions for you before you leave. Rapid fire. Give me the first thing that comes to mind. All right. Number 1, you're stranded on desert island. What's the one food that you would like to eat for the rest of your life with no consequence?
Oh man. They say that it's never one food which can make you happy. But yeah, man, I love food, and it's hard to pick one, eh? But I think I think I would say, like, if there is a wheat there, then I can make, like, I can bake out of it, I can make bread out of it, I can do a bunch of other things out of it. I'm trying to think creatively, but like, yes, probably a wheat, right? So then I can make a bunch of other things out of it, out of that product, right? So
you're gonna pivot. Second question: do you have a hidden talent that not many people know about?
Oh wow, a hidden talent, right? I love nature, and I love mountains. I love camping. Not a lot of people who, or until they're very close to me, they know that I love camping. So it's like, if I can tell you everything about camping, right? If you, from an RV to like camping in the bushes to backcountry camping. That's something that, like, I won't say a hidden talent, but more or less like my knowledge area where I don't generally talk about, but that's something I'm very passionate about, right? Yeah.
All right. Hollywood calls and says, you know what, we want to do a biopic on you.
Mhm.
Who would you like to be casted as your best friend?
Oh man. Um, you know, so there are few, I think, like, but I think I would say Tom Hanks. The guy looks pretty calm and, like, pretty composed. So uh, uh as much as I would, like, pick up more animated characters like The Rock and like other people, like, or Vin Diesel or someone, but I would really pick up the brain of Tom Hanks. And, like, he has one of the most long steady careers in Hollywood. And, like, I Forrest Gump and a lot of these movies I have a lot of inspiration from. So yeah, I think Tom Hanks. Yeah.
Okay, so Tom Hanks shows up at your door, and now that I know that you love food so much, Tom Hanks goes, you know what? I'm hungry. What's that special dish that you could provide him or serve him?
Hey, okay. So if I have options and I just don't have wheat in my kitchen, then of course I'll make him some nice, like, Indian dish like kebabs or butter chicken or something, like, to try to sway him away and buy more time from him, right? That, hey, you know what, I then at least, like, put decent food on a table, which will make him stay more longer. But cook something like biryani, some sort of, like, more traditional, very rich cultural food, which he might haven't experienced before, right? And that opens up his taste buds and hopefully, like, open him up to like a different kind of food, right? So yeah, yeah.
Awesome. And then my last question is, what is success like? Give me a number from 1 to 4.
What is success like?
Yes, but a number between 1 to 4.
1 to 4, from what perspective?
Just give me a number.
Success is always 4.
4? So
Yeah.
if you had to relate success to a straw, how is success like a straw?
Oh, wow. So when you're successful, how in the straw, right? You pull from one side and, like, whatever you're drinking, juice, water, it just comes. That's what success like when the money is coming through the flow. All you keep doing, it just keep coming. It doesn't spill anywhere, and you've created this really amazing system for yourself that all you do is, like, on demand, you just suck and money starts coming, right? So it's that system of the straw which success can relate to, because success is a system, and once the system comes together in one form or other, it starts producing results in terms of, like, monetary value, leverage, whatever the other things are, right?
Awesome. So that's how success is like a straw. Once again, thank you very much for your time. Lots of great stories that you shared, lots of great value. If anybody wants to get in touch with you with regards to your services, what you do, what's the best way?
You can go to my website, alisalman.ca. Search me on any social media channels, Ali Salman. I'm sure you're going to find. I try to stay up. So, and I should be visible, being a marketing guy. So, of course, like, you should be able to find me on any platforms and just search for Ali Salman, right? So,
yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Any last words from you?
No, I think it's a great opportunity, and thank you so much for putting this show, Fong. That a lot of the concepts, like, as I listen to your content as well, a lot of the concepts you talk about, sometimes, like, you need to read books for that, and I'm sure you do research around it, right? So I think if you're really looking for condensed knowledge, right, I think you put an amazing, like, show out there around it, right? Because some of the concepts I've learned from you, I'm sure that I need to read the whole damn book to just understand that damn concept. And there are some deep concepts, right? Because I always say that once you start understanding concepts, techniques and tactical things start becoming easier for you, because now you understand the macro things, right? So no, I my parting piece of advice is listen to Fong's show. I mean, like, it has tremendous value there. And it helps you make a better leader. It helps you make a better person, because that's what truly, like, I believe in. He hasn't paid me anything to say that, right? And those are my genuine thoughts about his content. So thank you, Fong, for putting up, like, your time, energy, and your research to come up with these amazing concepts around it, right? So yeah.
Well, thank you very much. I guess I do owe you something then. Well, once again, thank you very much. Here's Ali. My name is Fong. Make sure you check out some of his content. Lots of great stuff online. And until next time, today is the day to lock your peak potential. Well, I'll see you later.
Thank you.